This is my tact theory on how to leave the circus. These theories are mostly original in the sense that I developed them, but take tons of inspiration from other theories and videos as well. They are credited when mentioned. I am so glad to be making this, especially the first theory, which I started to develop around episode 6 or 5, I think. I honestly don't entirely care about the theories being correct, though obviously it'd be nice. I just want to be able to get involved in the fandom and make some theories. Now, funny enough, due to schoolwork and some laziness, I missed my initial deadline of making this video before episode 7 came out. But after watching, I saw that I could still make my theory, as while it wasn't proven, it wasn't disproven either. So, it's also funny that everyone is so scared for episode 8 and 9 to come out. Like, if you go on Instagram a lot, in any of the recent TAC genre content, there's always this Ali from Squid Game gift that says, "I'm so freaking scared." It's just so funny. It's like every video I go, I see it, and then it's anyway, I don't know about y'all, but I'm very ready for these episodes to come out. My only fear came from the fact that I was running out of time to make this video each time an episode came out. But here we are, so I hope you enjoy this video. The first theory, aka the character development theory. Is there actually a way for our beloved characters to leave the circus? And if there is, will they even figure it out? So I believe there is a way and that it lies within the ending of episode 1. Now, in most cases of writing, the first episode introduces a hook or suspense moment. For example, in Gravity Falls, at the end of episode 1, we learn there's more to Grunkle Stan than it seems. Now, of course, not doing this wouldn't make TAC a bad show. In fact, I think this show is amazing. I really love its whole vibe, but I'm almost certain that episode 1 ending did this anyway because during the episode, Pomni is determined to escape the circus and finds herself in what's called the Void, which Caine claims to be an unfinished section of his game. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to this. And so, having touched on that, I want to talk about something else for a moment. Something to notice is that each character's avatar, room, and even designated episode, though that one is technically fourth wall breaking, reflects something about them. Jax wasn't too far off when he said each character has a role to play in the circus. He was just wrong about what roles they played. Zooble most definitely has body dysmorphia, and despite having a box full of never ending, fully customizable parts, she struggles accepting her body. And her room in turn has a bunch of mirrors, which is crazy work if you ask me. Then Gangle is widely believed to suffer from depression and or bipolar disorder. Ragatha seems to be a people pleaser, having a constant need to do and potentially suck up to others, tending to be the ragdoll of the group. Pomni seemingly struggles with anxiety and hates being belittled or viewed as a child, and in turn, her room is childlike and overwhelming in size proportions. Now, Jax is a little complicated, especially considering the scenes shown of his possibly traumatic experience before entering the circus, but he most likely struggles with opening up to others and having confidence in showing his true self, wishing he could be seen by others and even himself as more masculine, or at the very least something he is not, which is why his room might be very soft and like fun. I really like his room. It's very colorful. That's just probably what my room would look like if I was in the circus. And for Kinger, I saved for last because after Jax, I find him to be the most difficult to apply a conditioner problem to. This is because their problems definitely reflect on their past lives before the circus, but Kinger's main problem seems to be Alzheimer's, but surely he didn't have that when he first arrived, seeing as it is very possible he is the main creator of this game. As he says in episode 3,
Man, 7 years of computer science for this, huh?
however, episode 3's adventure is implied to be based off of Kinger's story in the circus anyway, so it is possible that he caused his wife's distraction by unintentionally harming her due to said disease, or since we know that there is a connection to Kinger, the attractions in darkness, in which it calms them all down, and that Caine is most likely the cause of the first distraction, he is also the cause of Kinger's craziness, which means that his real role in the circus could actually be that as a king or main creator of the game, and the guilt or pressure he holds for being responsible for all of this in the first place, which could also still be something he felt before being trapped in the circus. More on Kinger being the main creator of the game. I have believed in that since episode 3, but after episode 7, proof of Ribbit and Kaufma along with some of the other abstracted characters being employees was provided. I always thought of Kinger's game being more of an indie project, but there is even a company called Caine, which as a Christian I find to be a really cool reference, and overall that Bible story is widely known to an extent. But anyway, if Caine is Caine, Kinger could be Abel, with Caine originally serving as an AI partner. The only Abel we've seen was an NPC who was supposedly the answer to leaving the circus, and when I first saw him, I was like, no, it's not Kinger, especially since I was lucky enough to not be using those subtitles. But even during the time that I thought he was actually Abel, the way he felt and talked about Kinger made it feel like he was still very important, like he knew something nobody else did, which is why he was about to tell Pomni before losing the knowledge that he was cooking with to the light. It is also most likely that the NPC being named Abel was just to throw us off because Gooksworks loves to do that, and he was just deleted afterwards anyway. I honestly thought he was Dr. Football at first. I mean, like, do you guys remember him? Whatever happened to Dr. Football? I mean, he might make a return after all. There is a mannequin door in the circus, unless that is just the default profile picture for an empty door. I honestly don't really remember that much, but surely there wouldn't be preset doors if the number of players possible in the game was indefinite, and then, of course, the abstracted characters that were there, they just get their doors crossed out. And so, anyway, we just went over how each character has a designated problem, but why did mentioning this matter? Well, finally getting back to the void, when Caine realizes that Pomni is in the void, he says,
Oh no! Someone's venturing out into the void! They'll get totally spoiled!
and after saying so, he hastily drags Pomni out of the void. So, what does getting spoiled mean? Well, we see that when Pomni is exposed to the void, she just floats there looking out of it, which honestly could just be because the void looks interesting, and she was already going crazy over the little things. So for her to realize that this is really a serious reality could have very well been what was going on. However, even her eyes started to look different the longer she was in there, and when she got out, she just immediately snapped out of it. Caine had also explained to the group that it's his unfinished work, and that nobody, not even him, is to go out venturing into the void. But after episode 7, it is also very clear that even though Caine means well, he can be a liar and manipulator after all. But even then, he was actually worried about Pomni saying it out loud when he was in private. It's not like he had to put on an act if the only one there was Bubble, because even if Caine was evil, I mean, like, what's Bubble gonna do? He can't really do anything. And now, finally talking about episode 1's ending, when Pomni has sat down to enjoy a totally delicious meal by Bubble with her totally new friends, the camera zooms out to show the whole circus, then the world, then the very large and possibly infinite void, before finally zooming out of a computer screen in an office. This heavily points toward the void having a connection to a possible escape. That computer was also in the Caine and Abel office, which isn't even how Pomni entered, as she said she had entered using a headset. Another reason I think the void is very relevant is because just before episode 7 was released, Glitch posted an image of the exit door on the beach, but it was never even mentioned in the episode, which was all about finding a potential escape anyway. So then, if the void is the way out, then you might be asking, well, Dreamer, why is the void dangerous then? How will they leave if they can't stay in the void? And to that I say the answer lies within one of Goose's tweets. When someone asked which character deserved to be in the circus the most, Goose answered with Jax. And early within the show's production, Goose made it clear that Jax is a prick and that it gets worse later on in the series, and that only the strong Jax fans will survive the show. And even with him being a jerk, I found that he was still my main favorite character along with Pomni and Caine. But after episode 5, I started to think, is he really that bad? Plus, again, we know that Goose likes to mislead us to keep suspense or grow confusion, which I honestly love. So that and the fact that each character has a problem would mean that Jax is a mean person because of his problem. But if that's the case, will he really deserve to be in the circus for that reason? If he still deserves to be in the circus for this, then it might be because the circus intentionally or unintentionally pushes him to be better. We especially see this in Kinger, Gangle, and Zooble. Gengo after episode 4 finds a strong trust in Zooble and Pomni, and I think it's around episode 7 where Zooble admits that maybe the ability to change can be a great thing. And Kinger continues to thrive the same way he always has, though Pomni now views him differently and confides in him. Pomni herself also ends up helping or influencing almost everyone she interacts with during the episodes, showing that she isn't as childlike as she may seem and is actually a mature and responsible person getting the opportunity to practice such. So maybe the void spoils those who haven't come to terms with their problems or conditions. And so, as corny as it sounds, the solution to leaving the circus could actually be the power of friendship and strong will. So then, with that knowledge, all the characters would have to do is wait for an exit to appear, which might possibly be easier than it seems too, because another common theory is that the characters' wills manipulate the game. I have also seen two people comment moments where this has happened, such as Zooble's spatula hand not working, there not being an evil Gangle, and Ragatha saving herself from Jax because they believed it wouldn't work or shouldn't happen. And honestly, I think that's a really smart analysis, as I thought those were purely just gag moment scenes, which I always love anyway, but I also thought that when Kinger made the butterfly appear, it was just because he was possibly the creator of the game. But it could actually be an ability that every character has, which can allow them to spawn an exit door that takes them to the void. Once they reach the void, since we saw that the void is infinite but technically eventually does lead to the computer screen in the office, they'll probably not have to travel or anything, but like just use their will and character development to like somehow transport out. Now, the cast for TAC reportedly cried after reading the ending in the script, which might not necessarily mean a sad ending, but at the very least an emotional ending. But that still means someone could attract, get left behind, or revived, especially already attracted characters, or maybe it's something that happens to Caine or something that he does. And so this is my biggest hole in the theory. Now, I also came up with a second theory more recently, considering the emotional ending and also the fact that Gooseworks said the message that they want people to take away from TAC is that there is meaning to be found in a stagnant life. Now, many have tied this to the clone theory, which I haven't dismissed or anything, but this is my least favorite theory because that would mean they aren't even biological clones but digital ones, which means I've grown attached to these characters that might not even get a good ending. But that would mean that they are NPCs, which Goose has dismissed, saying that everyone there is a real person. But then again, we do know how Goose is, so you never know, but this is not one of my theories. What I think this means is that something happens to Caine, whether he leaves somehow or breaks down. Now, there is already a hole in this theory because, as we see in episode 3, when Caine breaks, the circus does too, and that might be because he is connected to the circus, but we have seen him slowly break down each episode, so even if he doesn't disappear, knowing he can never satisfy the group, he might isolate himself from them, leaving them alone in the empty circus. And if Caine isn't there, he can't make adventures for them, so their lives would be, well, stagnant. And going back to the potential ability to manipulate the game, finding meaning in that now stagnant, boring life would be by using the ability to create their own fun. Which is exactly what Caine was worried about during episode 3 and 5, fearing that they would be better than him at the one thing he was made for. And honestly, I was writing this theory down, it dawned on me that this and the clone theory could actually build off of each other, especially considering the fact that if they are real people, well, how are they still alive? The story could possibly go about saying their souls were trapped or something like that, but NPC Abel suggested they were in cryostasis pods, I think he said, but the game itself could serve as that pod if they were actual people. But this is exactly why I don't dismiss the clone theory. Disdain does not equal dismissal. It might be possible, but I really hope it's not. And if they are to find meaning in a stagnant life, it may mean that they never leave the circus and come to terms with it, as they all continue to build their strong bonds, creating their own fun, and potentially saving their attracted friends and maybe helping Caine find a new purpose if he doesn't necessarily leave. But that finally wraps up my two theories. Feel free to comment about your opinions, theories, or even talk about your own excitement for episode 8, because I know for a fact that I am excited. Well, anyway, thanks for watching.